Dudumbi, son of demon Mahishasur, continued Sugriva, was very powerful and oppressed the gods in heaven and the people on earth. Nobody could fight with him. At last, the demon went to Yama and challenged him to fight with him. Yama said, I cannot fight with you. I therefore tell you to go to Vali at Kishkinda and he will fight with you to your satisfaction. The demon immediately came to Kishkinda and challenged Vali to fight with him. When the latter killed the former and hurled his body in the air, which fell on the hills called Rishimukha Parvat. All the rishis on the hills were killed by the weight of the corpse when a rishi called Matang cursed Vali, saying that if the latter touched the hills, he would instantly die. Mayasur, son of Dudumbi, came to avenge the death of his father, but he fled to Patal through a cave when Vali gave him blows. Vali pursued him, having posted me at the mouth of it. For many months he did not return, though I was at the cave all the time watching it. During this time, demigods entered Kishkinda and sought to take possession of it. I therefore placed a mountain at the mouth of the cave and drove all the demigods from the kingdom. Vali did not return to Kishkinda for 20 months, and from this fact, all concluded that he was no more. Whereupon the people of Kishkinda proclaimed me as their king against my wishes. In the meantime, Vali returned to the cave with the head of Mayasur, and having seen the mouth of it blocked up, he was alarmed on account of me. He immediately removed the mountain and directly came to Kishkinda. As soon as he saw me on the throne, he boiled with rage and said, You blocked up the mouth of the cave with a view to kill me and take my kingdom. So saying, he attacked me, but with the assistance of Nala, Nila, Jambavant, and Maruti, I escaped and made my abode on these hills because he would not come here for fear of the curse. Sugriva then showed the body of Dudumbi to Rama, who flung it at a distance with his toe. Now do one thing, said Rama. Just go and challenge Vali to fight with you. Sugriva accordingly went to Kishkinda and challenged him to fight with him, when Tara said to her husband, I implore you not to meet Sugriva today. He comes to fight with you every 6 months, but he has now come to combat with you 3 days after the battle you have fought with him. I think Rama and Lakshmana have promised to help him. I therefore pray that you will not go to fight with Sugriva today. That will not do, replied Vali. I must fight with him and cut off his head. If I am killed in the fight, Angada will protect you. So saying, Vali went and attacked Sugriva, when Rama killed the former with one arrow. Tara, his wife, violently cried for her husband when Rama consoled her and advised her to marry Sugriva. At first she hesitated, but soon after she married him. Sugriva began to rule and forgot all about Rama in his luxury. Rama sent Lakshmana to Kishkinda. Maruti said to Sugriva, It is a bad thing that you have forgot Rama and left him alone in the forest. There stands Lakshmana at the door of your palace. Take care, he will kill us all. Sugriva was alarmed, and having thrown himself at his feet with his wives and other monkeys, implored the pardon of Rama. He then came with all his monkeys to Rama to help him in recovering his wife Sita. Rama put his ring on one of the fingers of Maruti as a mark from him. All the monkeys set out in search of Sita. On their way, they came across a forest and could not proceed further as they were bewildered there. This forest was cursed by a rishi called Dandaka, saying that those who entered it would remain there bewildered. The rishi cursed the forest because his infant son was devoured by the goddess of the forest. The infant son became a demon and devoured all the persons and creatures that went into the forest. Angada, son of Vali, killed the demon, and as soon as he was killed, he was restored to his former form. All the monkeys escaped unhurt as they were repeating the name of Rama all the time in the forest. They left the forest and, having searched Sita at several places in vain, at last came to a very large cave. The monkeys entered the cave, but they all fainted owing to suffocation. Maruti lifted them up with his tail and came out of the cave to a place where there was a beautiful garden. All the monkeys climbed up the trees in the garden laden with fruits, but they could not get a single fruit to eat. A mare called Suprabha came where the monkeys were standing. Maruti asked her who had created the garden, when the mare replied, Brahmadev was pleased with Mayasur, a demon, and having created the cave for him, said, I have created this cave for you. I require you to be always in it and not to leave it under any circumstances. And if you come out of the cave, you will instantly die. While in the cave, the demon always prayed to Vishnu for the protection of the demons on earth. Indra was alarmed and implored Brahmadev to get the demon out of the cave. To get him out of the cave, the god created a very beautiful damsel called Hema and sent her in the cave. The demon looked at her and was captivated with her charms. Finding that the demon was very much taken with her, she came out of the cave and he followed her, forgetting what Brahmadev had told him. As soon as he came out of the cave, he instantly died. After the death of the demon, Hema was in the possession of the cave and garden and soon left for the kingdom of Vishnu, placing me here in this form to watch it. Hema told me that when monkeys would come into this garden, I would be restored to my former form. Maruti said to her, We have eaten fruits to our heart's content, and we must now leave this place as soon as possible. We cannot see the way to the cave through which we have come here. Will you, therefore, be kind enough to show it to us? Whereupon Suprabha told all the monkeys to shut their eyes, and in a second they were all on a seashore. She was restored to her former form and, visiting Rama, went to her husband. The monkeys were very anxious to cross the sea and go to Lanka, but they were unable to do so. However, Maruti, repeating the name of Rama, crossed the sea. But on the way, he met with several accidents. The gods sent a huge woman to devour him. She opened her mouth and stood in his way. He passed through her mouth and proceeded further. In the meantime, the sea sent a mountain to block up his way. The mountain said to him, Good creature, why are you not going to take rest on my bosom? At these words, Maruti got enraged and pressed down the mountain. A little further on, a frightful demoness, Shihika, who was mother of Rahu and Ketu, swallowed him up, but he tore off her belly and came out. At last, he arrived at Upper Lanka when the goddess of the place caught hold of his legs and knocked him down. He got up and gave her mortal blows when she implored him to spare her life. He having granted her request, she blessed him, saying that he would be successful in his undertaking. He then came to Lower Lanka called Padalanka. Krocha, the youngest sister of Ravana, whose husband Gargar was killed by Indra, lived there. As soon as she was informed of his arrival there, she went with a number of demons and demonesses to catch him, when he became a small and beautiful animal. Krocha said to the demons and demonesses, This is a very good and pretty animal. Let me have it for my breakfast. Just kill it and cook it for me. My body, replied he, is full of water, and if you order me to be cooked for your breakfast, you will get nothing. I therefore tell you to swallow me up so that you may have a delicious taste. Rocha accordingly swallowed up Maruti, who entered her heart and pulled off her flesh. The demoness tossed about with pain. Her companions gave her medicine mixed with the dung of a hog, but the monkey was so disgusted with the dirt that he let out his tail through her nose and ears. All the demons and demonesses believed that the tail was a disease and began to pull it out, when Maruti, having torn off her belly, came out and threw all the demons and demonesses into the sea. From lower Lanka, he went again to upper Lanka, and at sunset he entered Nikumbala, a county in Lanka where Indrajit, the eldest son of Ravana, lived with his family. Went into the palace of the demon prince and saw him with his beautiful wife Sulochana there. Maruti said to himself, "No doubt this is Sita, and she has fallen in love with this wicked demon." So saying to himself, he was about to kill both of them. But in the meantime, she said to her husband, "Just think for a moment. Is it not a bad thing that your father has unjustly brought Sita here? If she is not restored to her husband, a great calamity will befall him." Having heard this conversation, Maruti was convinced that she was not Sita and went to the palace of Vibhishana, the youngest brother of Ravana, where he was much pleased because the demon was the devotee of Rama and everything there was clean. He also saw there an idol of Rama which Vibhishana worshipped every day. Thence he went to the palace of Kumbhakarna, where he was in deep sleep, snoring all the time. Maruti was disgusted with the sight of the heaps of bones and the flesh of human beings and animals scattered around his palace. When he failed to find Sita there and at other places, he was enraged. And assuming an invisible form, he began to trouble the demons and demonesses of Lanka in various ways. When they carried water in their pots, he broke them with his tail. He dashed to pieces the chariots of the princes who happened to drive in the streets. One day a barber began to shave the beard of Ravana. When Maruti stood behind him in an invisible form and thrust his tail into the nose of the former, the barber was startled, and in confusion he shaved the mustaches of Ravana. Ravana got angry and slapped the barber in the face, when the monkey also gave a slap to the demon king. Maruti pulled down the houses of the demons with his tail while their families were asleep. One day in a minute he extinguished all the lamps in Lanka, and consequently all of a sudden were in confusion and alarm. The inhabitants of Lanka said to themselves, "Sita, whom Ravana has brought here, has created the devil to annoy and trouble us." Maruti then entered the palace of Ravana, where he and his wife Mandodari were fast asleep. On beholding Mandodari, Maruti thought that she was Sita and that she fell in love with the demon king. He got much enraged and was about to carry them where Rama was staying with Lakshmana. But in the meantime, Mandodari was awakened in alarm and said to her husband, "I have dreamt a dream which indicates that Indrajit and you will be killed, that the Ashoka forest will be destroyed, and that Lanka will be burned because you have unjustly brought Sita here. I therefore implore you to restore her to her husband." "You need not be afraid of it in the least," replied Ravana. "I have posted 5 crores of demons and demonesses to watch the Ashoka forest, and they will not allow Rama to kill us and destroy the forest." So saying, Ravana dispatched his servant to the Ashoka forest to see whether Sita was there. Maruti accompanied the servant in an invisible form. He saw Sita sitting under the shade of a tree. The servant returned to Ravana, and Maruti remained in the Ashoka forest. The monkey was exceedingly glad when he found Sita and threw before her the ring which Rama had put on his finger. Looked at the ring and asked it with tears in her eyes, "Ring, where have you come from? How is my Rama? Is he safe?" While Sita was thus asking the ring, the demonesses came there and told her to be quiet, saying that if she did not listen to them, they would devour her, when Maruti with his tail tied up all of them together and flung them down. Some of them died and some fled. He then began to sing, which was so pleasing to her ears that she was very anxious to see who that creature was. She called the creature several times, but nobody responded to her call. She was disappointed and prepared herself to commit suicide when the monkey came and stood before her. She asked him, "Who are you? What is your name? And where have you come from?" "I am a servant of Rama and have come here in search of you," replied Maruti. "Your Rama is well and has come to Kishkinda for you. He will shortly take you from this place. You need not be afraid of me. I am not a demon. I am son of the wind and my name is Maruti." "Besides the ring," continued Sita, "have you got any other proof from Rama that you are his servant?" Whereupon he recapitulated all the calamities that had befallen her, and she was thereby convinced that he was her husband's servant. "I should have annihilated Lanka in a moment and taken you to Kishkinda," said Maruti. "But Rama did not order me to do so. I am very hungry. Will you therefore allow me to take fruits from the trees in the forest for my breakfast?" "It is not in my power to allow you to take fruits from this place," replied Sita. "And if you forcibly take them, the demons and demonesses will kill you. I, however, tell you to gather for your breakfast the fruits that have fallen on the ground and not to take them from the trees with your hands and feet." "I swear that I shall not take any fruits from the trees with my hands and feet," said Maruti. "I shall take the fruits which have fallen on the ground." So saying, he lengthened his tail and plucked all fruits with it, and after a few minutes he destroyed the whole of the Ashoka forest. The 60 crores of demons who were watching the forest at once came upon him, but he tied them up with his tail and flung them down. Some died and some fled. Hearing this news, Ravana sent 8,000 demons to catch the monkey, but the latter tied them up with his tail and killed them all. Ravana was greatly enraged and sent 1 lakh of warriors whom the monkey threw into the sea with its tail. The demon king then sent his son Akshaya with a large army, but he was also killed with his other sons. Immediately after, he dispatched a frightful demoness called Asali, who had the strength of 10,000 elephants. She opened up her hideous mouth 1 yojan in length and breadth and devoured the monkey, but the latter tore her belly off and came out. At last Ravana sent his son Indrajit with a large army of demons. He let off his arrows at Maruti, which the latter broke off with his hands in no time. The monkey pulled off his mugut with his tail, broke his chariot, and killed his horse. He took up an iron bar and went killing the demons with it. When Indrajit attempted to catch him in a snare, but the monkey became as small as an atom and escaped through it every time the prince put it upon him. Whereupon Indrajit made a snare with a small noose and put it upon him, when he assumed a large form and broke the snare. When the prince failed in catching him in the snare, he combated with the monkey, but the latter flung him down on the ground. The prince was alarmed and said to himself that if he was seized by the monkey and carried to Rama, he would be cruelly treated. So saying, he hid himself in a cave when Maruti blocked up the mouth of it with a mountain. Indrajit cried and wept. Ravana, having been acquainted with this news, imploringly said to Brahmadev, "You see, Indrajit is in difficulty. If you personally go there, you will be able to ensnare the monkey. I therefore beseech you to do the work for me." Whereupon Brahmadev went near the cave when Indrajit hung his head down with shame and said, "Unless you catch hold of the monkey, I cannot venture to come out of the cave." Whereupon Brahmadev put upon Maruti the Brahmapasha, which the latter could have broken in a minute, but he allowed himself to be caught in it and carried to the court of Ravana. Indrajit went and vainly told his father that it was he who had caught the monkey. Maruti made a coil of his tail, higher than the throne of Ravana, and sat upon it. The demon king indignantly asked, "Who are you, and what is the name of your master?" "You are," replied Maruti, "a great rogue. Do you know who I am? I am a servant of that prince who had saved your life at the court of Janak and cut off the nose of your sister. You are a great villain. You have carried off his wife Sita. I am sent by my master to ascertain whether she is here. My master will shortly invade Lanka, and cutting off your 10 faces will return to Ayodhya with Sita." At these words, Ravana was greatly insulted and ordered the demons to cut off the tongue, nose, ears, and tail of the monkey. In obedience to the order of the king, all the demons brought weapons of various sorts and began to pierce him with them, but nothing could be done to him, as his body was made of vajra. Ravana was alarmed and did not know what to do. At last, he asked the monkey by what means he would die. "I am immortal," replied Maruti. "But if you cover my tail with cloth soaked in oil and set fire to it, I shall be immediately burned to death. Do not leave any part of my tail uncovered, as if you do so, nothing can be done to me." Whereupon Ravana ordered his servants to cover his tail with cloth. All the demons accordingly brought innumerable heaps of cloth soaked in oil and began to cover the tail of the monkey with them. But the more they covered the tail with them, the more he lengthened it, and consequently a part of it remained uncovered. All the cloth in Lanka was finished and oil exhausted. At last, Ravana ordered his servants to go to the Ashoka forest and get the dress of Sita, when Maruti shortened his tail and allowed it to be entirely covered. The demons then began to set fire to the tail, but they failed to light it. Maruti said, "If Ravana will blow the fire himself, it will catch my tail, and I shall be immediately burned to death." Ravana accordingly blew the fire, and the tail of the monkey was lighted. Whilst he was blowing the fire, it caught his beard, and his mustaches on one side were entirely burned. He covered his face with his handkerchief and retired to his chamber. Maruti rolled on the ground and burned the beards and mustaches of the demons and the hairs of the demonesses with his tail in flames. He burned many of them to death, and in a short time, one third part of the Lanka was on fire. After burning Lanka, the monkey went to the Ashoka forest and assured Sita that her husband would take her very soon. Thence he returned to Rama at the Pampa Sarovar with her ornament as a mark from her, and a letter from Brahmadev to the prince stating what the monkey had done in Lanka, and that one third of the country burned by him had become gold. Rama and Lakshmana was very glad to read the contents of the letter and expressed their thanks to Maruti for the trouble he had taken for them. The story of how Lanka had become gold is as follows. Two Brahmins who were brothers always quarreled about the dakshina they had got from their patrons. Their father became indignant at their conduct and cursed them, saying that they would be animals, but that the god Krishna would release them from the curse. One brother was transformed into a Nakra and another into Gajendra. The Nakra lived in water and the Gajendra on a mountain. One day the Gajendra accidentally came to the lake in which the Nakra lived, and whilst drinking the water, the latter dragged the former in the lake. A severe fighting took place between them. The Nakra severely wounded the Gajendra and was about to kill him when the latter prayed to Krishna for help. The god, listening to his prayer, rode on Garuda and hastened to the lake. Finding that his devotee, the Gajendra, was wounded by the Nakra, Krishna killed the crocodile and released him and the elephant from the curse. After releasing them from the curse, Krishna prepared himself to return to Dwaraka when Garuda said to him, "I am very hungry. Please, therefore, give me something to eat. I shall postpone my departure for an hour or so, replied Krishna, and in the meantime you can eat the corpses of the Nakra and Gajendra. Whereupon Garuda went and picked up the corpses with his bill and sat on a tree called Jambuvruksha for the purpose of eating them. But the branch of the tree on which he had sat was broken by his weight when he observed that millions of rishis sat in meditation on the leaves of the branch. In order that the branch might not fall on the ground and kill the rishis, he firmly held the branch with its bill, and not knowing where to keep it, he went to his father, Kashyapa, a rishi, and informed him of his difficulty. Whereupon Kashyapa requested the rishis to come down, and they complied with his request. He then told Garuda to leave the branch on a mountain at Lanka. Garuda accordingly did it and went away. The branch remained on the mountain and was converted into gold. And when Maruti burned Lanka, it was melted by the heat of the fire, and the liquid overflowed the part of the Lanka which was burned by the monkey. Soon after, Rama and Lakshmana made preparations for march against Ravana, and on the day of Dasara, they set out with 18 padmas of monkeys, 72 kotis of warriors under the command of an old monkey, Jambavant, and 56 kotis of other monkeys. When they arrived at the sea which Maruti had first crossed, they were encamped there, being no way to proceed further. This news having spread throughout Lanka, Vibhishana, the youngest brother of the demon king, entreated him to restore Sita to her husband and set all the gods at liberty. He said, "If you do not listen to me, the whole of Lanka will be annihilated and all the demons destroyed." Ravana and his son Indrajit replied, "We do not care at all about it. Let Rama and all the monkeys come upon us. We shall kill them all in a second." Having failed to persuade the demon king to restore Sita to Rama, Vibhishana, accompanied by 4 demons, came where the monkeys had been encamped and sought to visit the prince. The monkeys were about to kill the demons when Vibhishana said, "I am the youngest brother of Ravana and have come here to see Rama. I hear that he killed Vali and gave his kingdom to Sugriva. In like manner, I want him to kill Ravana and give his Lanka to me. He is wicked and has oppressed both the gods and the Brahmans." The monkeys looked upon him with suspicion and did not believe at first sight what he had said. But Maruti said, "Vibhishana is not a wicked demon. He is a devotee of Rama and has come here with some good object." Whereupon Rama desired the monkeys to allow Vibhishana to see him. Sugriva went and brought him to Rama. The demon fell at the feet of the prince when the latter blessed the former, saying that he would be the king of Lanka and would reign there as long as the sun and the moon last. Rama asked him what he should do to cross the sea with his large army of monkeys, when Vibhishana replied, "Pray to the sea and he may make way for you and your army." Rama went to pray to the sea and Vibhishana left for Lanka. Ravana was informed by a demon called Shardula that a large army of monkeys under the command of Sugriva had been encamped near the shore of the sea and that they would invade Lanka in a day or two. Whereupon a demon called Shuka came to Sugriva on behalf of Ravana and said to him, "Rama is a wicked man, and why do you help him? What have you to do with Sita? Quietly return home with your army. If you do not listen to me, the heads of all your monkeys will be cut off, and Rama, Lakshmana, and you will be killed." The monkeys were enraged at what the demon had said and beat him up severely when Lakshmana interfered and let him go. The demon again said, "You are all stupid monkeys and will be shortly sacrificed here." Rashabha, a monkey, replied, "Just tell Ravana to restore Sita to Rama, and if he refuses to do so, his neck will be cut off with his 10 heads." Hold your tongue, said Shuka. Sita will never be restored to Rama. I again tell you to leave the prince alone here, and if you do not listen to me, your days are numbered. The monkeys again caught him by his neck, and having belabored him, bound him with a cord. Rama prayed to the sea for 3 days without eating a morsel of food. But the sea was so impertinent that he did not listen to his prayer. When the prince got indignant and aimed his Dhanushban to dry up the sea was alarmed and said, kindly forgive me and do not dry me up. I am ready to do what you bid me to do. Very well, replied Rama. But what shall I do with this Dhanushban? It must be at any rate let off, according to my solemn resolution, which cannot be changed under any circumstances. There lives in the west a demon called Maru, continued the sea. He devours all creatures in the water. Please, therefore, let off the arrow at him and cut off his head.